All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Quest for Success podcast. Super excited on our guest today. Known this guy for quite a few years now. I get to work with him every day, and it's a pleasure. You know, he's a staple, a leader in our community, and we're excited to get to kind of just have a conversation with him, have him share some insight into leadership and kind of overseeing an organization. But he is the superintendent of Burton Schools, former principal, vice principal, teacher, all-around educator. His wife's also a superintendent, and you know he's been a director at all kinds of other things in education. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. David Shimer onto the podcast.
All right, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, this is really cool for me. This is like a full circle situation for people. Well, I'm sure they don't know is that Mr. Shimer was my fifth grade teacher, and shoot, let's not say how long ago that was.
It was a while back. I think might have been the beginning of my career.
The beginning.
I might have to say sorry for some of the instructional practices I wasn't sure about at the time.
You've came a long way since then.
Yes, there's been a lot I've learned in the process.
Yeah, so
that's awesome.
Yeah, I do have memories of Zach.
Yeah,
he was a good kid. He really was.
You said fifth grade?
Yeah, it was fifth grade. I was
Strathmore
he's
Elementary.
Being too kind, man. That was my learning years. We'll just say that.
Is that where you got your start in education at Strathmore?
That is where I got my start. Yeah, I started back in 2000. Was able to get a job right out of Fresno State over to Strathmore Elementary.
Nice. Go Dogs.
Yes, go Dogs.
You and your wife, right?
Yeah, she had at the time wasn't my wife. Didn't know her actually, but she started at the same year.
And now
Strathmore
she's the superintendent for Strathmore School District.
Another full circle moment because she wanted to go back and give back to where we got our start, which was at Strathmore Elementary, and she had that opportunity a couple of years ago to be able to go back and be the superintendent there.
That's
which
awesome.
Is kind of a first full circle moment for her.
Yeah.
For sure, without a doubt.
So, David, we have a mental minute just to kind of get the gears turning a little bit to get us kind of started into the conversation and loosened up. So, Zach's going to kick us off with the first question.
Yeah, so we all kind of have proud moments throughout our career. You know, what is one that stands out to you the most?
Think of a proud moment. I think of one, it would be bringing technology into our school district. Originally, I had a chance over at Strathmore to be really part of bringing technology in its infancy for our kids back when it was just sitting at a computer lab and PowerPoint and that kind of thing. But I saw when I was getting my master's degree in the technology perspective of how we could bring innovation to education. And I was able to kind of work through that from a point of a computer lab to now being a one-to-one district and having every student with a device, having that innovation, the creativity, the opportunity for that creativity. So I think that's a proud moment working many years to get to that point. We started from basically said that computer lab concept of you get technology for 1 hour a day, 1 hour a week, to all the way to now we have it for for every day, every opportunity. Doesn't mean we use it every moment, but it's there and
it
available.
has access.
Access.
Yeah, and now we get to kind of see the fruits of that labor from the educator perspective, our families, our students, and the community. So cool.
We live in a technology world now. I mean, keep up, right?
We do.
You got to keep up. So that's cool.
So David, you know, we all have those different inspirations in our lives. And so being an educator, who was that inspiration for you? Was it a family member? Was it a former teacher that you had? Who kind of instilled those values to be of service and get into education?
That's a good one. I kind of think of three different angles on this one. As far as my work ethic, what got me where I'm at right now, I'd have to go to my dad. My dad was the one that inspired me along the way. He was always there supporting, didn't push us to have to be any certain person, but it was always there supporting. He had us working hard outside. It wasn't kind of, there's no excuses. We had to get things done and keep that, kind of develop that work ethic in me. On the educational side, I think of Dr. Gary McKeel. He was a former superintendent over at Burton School District. And I don't know, he found a way to inspire us to reach those dreams. So when I mentioned that technology portion where we said we brought in one-to-one, I remember sitting with him at the desk and him just saying, hey, I have this dream. I'd love to be able to bring technology to the kids. And I've seen it happening over at Clovis, and I wanted to see if I can get that opportunity. And he would never say no. He would just kind of say, well, let's talk about that. Let's think about where we can go with this. Let's work towards that. And he always believed in me. He believed in a lot of other leaders in our district. And I think he has if you were to ask a lot of leaders in our district, his it's that inspiration of believing in people. So I think of him. And then one other one I think about is my high school English teacher back at Monache. She let us not have to write reports in place. We were able to do videos. So we could, and that was back before we had any of the technology we have now. We were splicing VCRs together and bringing soundboard together and adding our own sound effects. And we're able to, instead of doing a written report, she allowed us to do some crazy videos. And we were able to, I remember more from that than anything else I've did in high school along the way.
It's like the experience of it.
The experience of it is truly, she allowed us to not have to conform to just the basics. It was truly what inspired the creative aspect I show.
She challenged you in a different way than others. Yeah.
What was her name?
It was Mrs. Miller.
Mrs. Miller.
Yeah, she was our English teacher. Actually, I had the opportunity to have her for 2 different years. And so it would be my sophomore year and my senior year. And both times it would be like, all right, what's our next video? What are we going to do? So I think I have a video for every unit we had in high school that we did a video rather than a report. I think we still did some of the written reports, but honestly, I don't remember that. What I remember is the videos we did.
Is that kind of where it sparked for you? Like the technology part of everything? Like, boom, she was the one that kind of lit that up for you?
Group of friends. I won't call them nerds, but, group of friends that kind of hung around and thought about, hey, how could we do this next thing? How could we splice this together? How could we go get the ketchup and make it look like blood as Julius Caesar is getting, falling off of a tower or something? And so we were doing a lot of what I call high tech things at the time. Now you'd probably laugh at it, but it was pretty fun.
That's cool.
It inspired me to then try and find those opportunities for kids in the classes I had as I was a teacher for a few years there. Yeah. We had those moments where I was able to, and I'm thinking about when Zach, when you were in 5th grade, but we had a couple kids that kind of had that same inspiration drive, and I was able to bring the video into their experience as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool. That's cool. You mentioned the word, I think twice, a little bit earlier, the word leader. Yeah. In your terms, what does it mean to become a leader?
I think when, in my terms of being a leader, it's trying to inspire others to be better or even be more than what they would think they're capable of. Right. I think of servant leadership. I don't think of it being the boss. Actually, when I hear boss, it kind of makes me cringe a little. I kind of try and avoid that, although I allow people to say it if they're going to say it. But when it comes down to it, it's not about being the boss. It's about providing opportunities for and inspiring other people to be better. And I think of a leader as being somebody who's okay with having people around them that are smarter than them at different things. Right. Because you can't be a
know-it-all.
You just can't be.
Right.
And the more you can surround yourself with those that do know, the better we can all be.
Yeah, sure.
It gives that synergy.
Yeah. So I didn't have this on there, but I was thinking of a 4th question, kind of just a fun one. You're a sports guy. We actually went to, we were at a conference in Oregon last year, and we got to go see the Portland Trailblazers and Knicks play and Damian Lillard, and that was a cool experience. Got to share with you, but who were your teams growing up, and was there like a player or something that you kind of followed growing up that inspired you to kind of, get in athletics or anything of that nature?
Yeah, I was always basketball all the way around since I was, I don't know what age. Because at the time, I was as tall as I am now. I was 6'1". In 7th grade. I probably was 130 pounds. So that's why I got pushed around a little bit. But I was tall enough. I always was following the Lakers. I'm a Laker fan, diehard Laker fan. Magic Johnson, that was my magic number. I had 32. My locker number was always that. My number in high school. I wish I would have had a gym like we're in right now, because if I would have had somebody that would have pushed me and got me into the gym, I would have been a much stronger basketball player as I moved into the upper parts of my high school career. But I would just didn't get any bigger. Right. I was always about that 6'1", 130, 140 pounds, and then gradually everyone else got bigger around me. Lakers, the other one I think of is 49ers. I'm a 49er fan. Joe Montana, Steve Young.
Yeah.
All the way through. Of course, I can't not mention Kobe Bryant. I mean, that's
Right.
after the Showtime Lakers, it was Kobe Bryant. So I've just been it's been quite fun to follow the Lakers all along the way because they've had a good run, not just a decade, but multiple decades.
Yeah, franchise, right?
Yeah,
It's an incredible franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's kind of let's start at the beginning with you now, right? Because you mentioned, right, you like technology. So my question is, why get into the education system? Why not an IT guy? What made you want to become an educator?
It's kind of an interesting story because I actually didn't start as an educator. I went to Fresno State. Originally I was looking for a job that wasn't in education because my parents were both educators, and they encouraged me to go do something different. They said, you don't need to, go stretch out and find other opportunities.
Spread your wings.
Yeah, do something a little bit different. And I ended up saying, I want to go for pharmacy. It was more because I saw it was a quick way to get, 5 years and you got a pretty good position coming out of college. Didn't work out right out the gate because I found I wasn't into chemistry and I didn't realize that. So a lot of moments like a lot of kids have along the way is they realize you're got to find something that you passion and drive. So I ended up getting into Fresno State and getting a degree in advertising. And along the way, that's kind of where I developed a lot of my skill set with advertising, mass communications, and journalism. So I was able to develop some of those technology pieces I had, and I got a job at a sporting goods store actually in Fresno as their marketing manager.
Yeah.
And I found it to be like an 8 to 5 job that didn't, at the end of the day, didn't bring fulfillment at all. I was finding myself kind of just counting the minutes.
Yeah.
And you get in an advertising circle. You have an ad come out on a Thursday, and then you do a radio spot and a TV spot, but they just kind of all come and go, and it's another cycle, and there's no kind of break. And I was so used to that with my own family because they were both educators. We had this kind of cycle where you would have those moments with your family as well in the summer. At the time, I didn't have a family. I had a family with I didn't have my wife and my kids at the time, But when I looked at that, it just didn't have a fulfillment. And so I kind of
wanted more,
gravitated back to education. I really value those days because I think it's helped lead me where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I've always had a skill set that educators necessarily don't always have. And it's a valued skill set in education. You wouldn't believe it, but marketing is quite a valued skill set for somebody to have because you're not in education going to hire a marketing person necessarily, but if you have somebody that has that skill set, it can help you advance in education.
Makes sense.
So I was able to bring that and kind of told my parents at the time, hey, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go for education and be an elementary teacher. Yeah. And I went back, got another degree. They failed to tell me at the time I could have taken a test and avoided 2 more years of college. But,
of course.
So I have a double degree for no real reason other than I'm more educated now.
You got the experience though, like you mentioned.
Yes,
so
exactly.
That's a bonus.
For sure. So that was just a kind of a moment where I said, I need to find something that's fulfilling. And I kind of was in that mode from being in education with my parents all that time, is seeing that kind of build up through the year, and then you get that time off in the summer to really kind of regroup and start a new year fresh. All that has that kind of it's a fulfilling cycle that I was used to.
Yeah. And
it was something that I could start connecting with kids. There's something about connecting with kids where you can see them have that same spark that when I mentioned Mrs. Miller provided back in the day for me, was that spark of seeing a kid, their eyes light up and say, yeah, do that. Let's try that. Why don't you? And trying to inspire them to
have that
innovative.
Impact. Yeah.
And you get to see that feedback right then and there.
Hands-on.
That impact, right?
Right.
Not having to wait 5 or 10 years for something to, come into come into fruition, but right then and there you get to see kids' eyes light up and get to see, whether it's in athletics or whether it's in the classroom, you get to see that all the time. Why elementary? Why did you want to go that route and not middle school, or did you have a preference, or it was like you wanted to be K-6?
That's a good question. To be honest, I was a little bit afraid of middle school, high schoolers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was a little worried about kindergarten, first grade. I actually student taught in kindergarten. And yeah, that freaked me out a little too. I just saw that connection I could make. It seemed like at the time attitudes were a little easier to handle in those grades. I just feel like they're at that point in that 3rd through 6th grade where they still want to do good for you.
Yeah.
But then since then, my opinions obviously have changed.
Sure.
My thought process on that have changed because I've seen how much middle schoolers and high schoolers want to perform for adults too.
Yeah.
You have to make those connections with them and build the relationships, and you really can have that impact as well.
Right. What kind of, spending that, how many years did you spend as a teacher?
5 years as a teacher, and then 3 years as a computer lab, like technology specialist.
Okay. So what at that time was like a teacher in the classroom? And, now you're superintendent, you're assistant superintendent, you've been administrator, the principal and vice principal. You've spent time at every single level in education. What did those 5 years in the classroom kind of do to how should I word this? Create that vision, that leadership vision, and have that impact and that foresight now in your role as a superintendent to be able to support educators, support elementary teachers, support the day-to-day teachers in the classroom?
I think it builds empathy for what teachers have to go through.
Yeah.
I still say, I can relate to what they have to do. Although now that it's been almost 2 decades since I've been in the classroom, it's really hard to come in and say, well, this is how it used to be, because a lot changes in 20 years. So a lot of it has to be continuing to have conversations and have that being visible and being present in the classroom to kind of continue to build on that empathy, because we can lose track. I think you hear that dialogue happen sometimes, which is we can kind of become disconnected from what teachers are going through or what classified staff is going through, because things have changed over the years in the classroom to some degree. And I think it's honestly kind of trying to remember your roots, like where you came from, and try not to let that positional authority get to your head. If we lead by position, you're going to get some stuff done, but you're not going to inspire anyone, and your innovation is going to go out the door. You're going to be more, honestly, you're just going to get compliance, and compliance isn't going to lead you to next steps.
Yeah, compliance doesn't lead to creativity.
Not at all.
It kills it.
Kind of shackle yourself with it. So, like in the introduction, Blaine mentioned that you are the Burton School District Superintendent. Yeah. What is the role of that? Like, what do you do? What are the specifics of a superintendent?
Lots of meetings.
Yeah.
Got lots of people to talk to. I'm in 4th month of this role, still discovering all the aspects and the complexities of the role. A lot of it is trying to sustain a vision. One of ours is really focusing on the whole child and finding success in the student by connecting them. We have a lot of opportunities to connect kids to something that they're interested in. The role, I guess, is to make sure all adults are kind of focused in on that piece. Is how do we make sure students succeed in our district? I've had to expand my thinking a lot over the last even few months, which is I don't realize the complexities of it. As I've kind of dug in, I've been more focused in on, over my career, on the academic side, which would be instructional leadership, curriculum and instruction. But there's so much more to it. The aspects of transportation, nutrition, the maintenance, everything that has to happen. Even what's really something as a learning curve for me is the building facilities. when we're talking through, next steps for kind of keeping on the cutting edge of facilities. We got some modernization projects happening, and I was like, oh wow! And the budgets that go with that,
Right.
The politics that go with things, having to make sure I'm visible within the community. It's not just about being in the classroom. So it's a kind of a balance for me that I'm trying to still find my way through, and making sure I have that balance between, balance between developing people, between building connections with relational capacity, but also thinking about the task involved, which is we have to make sure we're fiscally solvent, to make sure we're continuing to build for the future.
Progress.
Yeah, all of those pieces. So I guess the biggest realization is the complexity of it all, is there's so many aspects, and realizing how much we depend on our team. So I have a team of assistant soups, our executive cabinet, who I depend amazing amount of dependency on, because I have to believe and believe that they're going to kind of work through those next steps.
Right.
I can't be in charge or have my hands in everything.
Right.
So the more I can let go of that and trust the people around me to do that job, the more then we can move forward as a district, because we are not a huge district, but we're also not small enough to where I'm going to have my hand in everything. So
How many students? It's few thousand students, right? But how many students, if you combine students, teachers, everyone, all the employees, how many individuals are you overseeing, I guess, in that role?
We have about 4,800 students. We're out at, I think the number we just got was 583 staff members. Wow. So we're closing in on 600. We've had a lot of staff come in because there's been a lot of one-time money after COVID, because we were around 500 not so long ago, and now we're at that 583, but there's so much more support staff. After school programs have really kicked up a number of staff members as well, because we've received a lot of those funding opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, because I don't think people really put into perspective, over 5,000 individuals, that's bigger than most, large 500, companies and all these major organizations that we see, right? And so you're overseeing all that. With that being said, one of the questions that a lot of people are asked, if you go into to interview for an admin position, whatever, is what is your leadership style, right? What does that style look like? And if you go look at different CEOs or look at different coaches, everyone's leadership style might be a little bit different, right? And how they manage, how they go about the day-to-day operation, whatever that is. For you, you've been able to work as a superintendent. You're an intern, assistant superintendent. You're an interim superintendent. You've been at every level. What would you say is your leadership style at this point in your career? Especially, 4 months into your superintendent, is still probably growing, is still evolving. But what would you say that kind of leadership style would be for you right now?
I've read a lot of books over the years on leadership. I mean,
Sure.
Some of those authors that stand out, like Simon Sinek, we've got Patrick Lencioni, you've got Brene Brown. All of them talk about servant leadership to some degree, right?
Yeah.
That how do we build relational capacity? So a relational leader that also has servant leadership and finds ways to inspire people around them. So there's other ones that are kind of lead by positional status, and that'd be the kind of the opposite of where I'm at, which is trying to find ways to inspire those around you, not micromanage, kind of get people on your bus, right? And saying, let's do this. Let's get inspired about what do you like to do? What do we want to do? What are we going to do together? Trying to make other people shine around you. That's that challenge constantly, and trying to highlight that. Because I'm always looking for opportunities to find ways to highlight the great work that's happening around us. Constantly trying to find those moments. I just listened to a speaker the other day at a leadership session Joe Sanfilippo, who's a superintendent in the, I think it's Minnesota, might be Wisconsin. But when he was talking about it, he's like, always try and find ways to give yourself a chance, to grow as a district, to grow as a leader. And those moments, don't pass up on those moments to highlight somebody that's doing a great job, those moments to shout out somebody that's taken their students to another level. Maybe that's taken on a program or anything that's happening.
A conference,
at school.
whatever.
Taking something to a new level. And so it's not seeing that as a threat, I guess. A servant leader would see that as an amazing opportunity for the people we're serving. Is, wow, you just did that. Because a positional leader often will see that as, oh, you're kind of threatening my authority. You're threatening my position because you're trying to outshine me. I would love the people around me to outshine me. I see that as the best possible option, possible outcome of anything we do is, wow, that's amazing work you've just done right now. Highlight it. How can we get you to the next level? So constantly trying to figure out what that passion is, reignite if it has to be reignited. Maybe it just needs to be, we just need to provide fuel to it and say, let's do that. Let's go for it. And then you start seeing people around you prosper, become that, take it to the next level, and always trying to figure out where they want to go.
Yeah. I mean, and you do such a good job of that. You're such a humble servant. And you mentioned Simon Sinek. He's got a book called Leaders Eat Last.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen this one, but it does go back to that, right? And not leading by titles, not leading by, those types of things, the title on your desk, but by being able to go out and you're doing some different things right now, the internships. You're going and working with, the maintenance team, the transportation team, and those types of things to be able to see what they're doing in the day-to-day. So you're able to best support them. So I think that's pretty cool. And not being afraid to get dirty, not being afraid to, pick up trash or not being above anything else. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's truly a servant leader or somebody that's going to have the humility, I guess, to do that, to be there, the desire to build the relational capacity to where they'll have your back when those moments get a little tough, because there's going to be some tough moments. There's going to be moments where you have to make tough decisions.
Yeah.
But when you have to make those tough decisions, if you built the relational capacity with those people you serve, it'll go smoother.
Yeah.
It won't be always perfectly smooth.
Right.
We're not going to try and pretend that it's always going to be smooth. But I found trying to find ways to build that capacity really quickly. One of them was that superintendent internship, and just spending one day trying to get a little bit of a vlog that goes with it, trying not to make it about me, but trying to make it about that relationship with those individuals. So that one has really been a huge eye opener for me, as well as a relation builder, because now I'm able to connect. I've done it with three different departments, but spending the entire day as if I'm with them, I'm one of them. So I was out trying to mow the lawn, not doing a really good job on that lawnmower, but cutting trees, serving in the cafeteria, and then trying to log that with our staff members, not to show that look what I'm doing. Hey, look what I'm doing. But more like, hey, look what they're doing. Look what they're doing every day to serve our kids, and value the fact that there's a lot of hard work that happens there. That one has paid off a lot as far as building not only relational capacity, but connections with other people, saying, wow, you're willing to do that. And I'm like, yes, that's why I don't need to be called even Mr. Shimer. I'm David to most of our staff when we're talking through it. Yeah. It's not a boss thing. It's not like I'm above anything. I'd rather actually be right there alongside everybody as I'm talking with them. That's the goal. I know there's times when we have to be the boss, but trying to avoid those moments so that you're more so then there's more chance at those moments when we need to talk through it, we'll get the real story.
Yeah. There's a time and a place.
There's a time and a place for it.
And it helps having built those relationships, right? When you do have to have those tough moments.
Yeah, I had to sat with our supervisor of grounds when I was working there, and just learning about his story, just sitting in the truck with him as we were driving to our next task that I had as I was talking to that moment I would have never had if I wouldn't have taken that time to have an internship with the grounds department. And I sat and talked with him in his truck and just found out things about him personally, his family, his reasons for his passion for the grounds. And knowing then that now when I have a quick question about something I see as I'm walking the grounds, it won't be like I'm calling somebody I don't know. And he'll know I'm coming from a right place in my heart, similar to him. Yeah. I know now he's not just doing a job.
Yeah,
he really cares about how the grounds look at our district. I wouldn't have known that if I wouldn't have taken that time for that connection.
Yeah.
So that relational capacity is huge.
Yeah, I agree. 17 years in the educational system. How many years?
It's been 20 since 2000, so 23.
23. So 23, and you're fresh as a superintendent, though. Yes. 4 months you mentioned just a bit ago. That's barely starting. But up until now, though, what would you say is your biggest career accomplishment?
Biggest career accomplishment.
I think be a few too.
I know. I'm thinking it's just building the relationships within our district. I mean, I have some relationships with and inspiring people within our district. I'm Burton. I'm just bleed Burton blue. I think the accomplishment I think of though is building our brand.
Yeah,
Burton brand. Really talking through everything we see. It's been a passion of mine. If you were to say, where would I be right now? I'd probably be behind all the cameras that are over here. I'd be trying to set all this up. I mean, I come into this kind of setup and I go, oh my goodness, what can I do? Get this camera, get this thing going.
Yeah.
I'd be doing that sort of thing because I love highlighting people. And so a lot of what we've done over the last few years in marketing, probably over 5 years, along with a team of a couple others, along with Irene Ortega, who's I got to mention her name, and Roberto Escudero originally. We were able to really rebrand Burton and bring in the logo, bring in the full, the website design, bring in video opportunity, finding ways to be more cutting edge and getting on social media. And now if you follow us on social media, you'll see that Burton experience is, I guess I'm proud every moment I see. Like right now we're running a campaign on just doing staff shout outs, and it's coming out, it's dropping at 6 p.m. every day, and seeing the number of interactions that we would have never had before.
That engagement.
I think we're up to like 4,500 on Facebook, a few thousand on Instagram, and all that was built from nothing, probably 5 years ago. And that I just see that, and that kind of brings back in that idea of when you have a skill set, don't underestimate it, because I had that marketing skill set, that advertising marketing kind of page layout. I can drop an ad still for our own district, and now I can use that to actually promote our district. Now the only difference is I need to be in front of the camera, and I realize that. Don't love it still, but I put myself in front of the camera because I know that's the position I have now. Before I used to kind of hang out behind it and love highlighting other people. I have to kind of step aside from that, so I have to be a little less humble and say, all right, I want to lead from the front. And that's what I'm going to do now when it comes to our branding. I'm now that person. Yeah. But I'm still in the back of my head. I'm still thinking all the back end, like, how do we get the lights? What do we do with this? Yeah. How do we make this look amazing? How do we find that next innovative way to display things? And then what's awesome is when you surround yourself in our district with those kind of people. I mean, Blaine's one of them. Yeah. Blaine, we got Fernando Gonzalez. So I know he's running around back here in the back. And those people, you inspire me. You inspire me to say, man, they're trying cutting edge things. I mean, how do they do that? I got to find out how they did that, because now I want to do that.
Stay curious.
Yeah. Stay curious.
In relation to like challenges, has that been one of the biggest challenges for you to kind of have to get in front of the camera now and get out and be on the microphone and, at big events and things like that? Because like you said, you're the guy that marketing major, behind the camera, being creative. And a lot of times you're, behind a computer on a Saturday and in the dark kind of doing that type of stuff. and not in front of the camera. And so I'm assuming that's probably been one of the biggest challenges so far, to have to pitch yourself out there a little bit more.
Yeah, that's been a huge challenge. The other one I think of is when I look at it, it is a challenge. There's, I want to be highlighting other people. I want to be finding way. But one thing I have been able to do, I know I have to step outside, I guess, of some of those pieces. I'm not going to be behind a camera now. I know that. I guess it's a challenge because sometimes I still see myself as just, hey, I'm just David. And other people say, oh, the superintendent's here, watch out. Oh, the superintendent's here. So I haven't been able to, I don't know if I want to own it that much where I'm walking around, oh, I'm the superintendent.
Yeah.
I just still see myself as like a colleague, somebody who's really trying to help Burton shine. And so that's that's kind of been a challenge, to step away from doing some of those things because I know there's other more important tasks I need to do. So now I kind of just do it for fun on the weekends. And my wife doesn't agree that it's just for fun. She still thinks I'm working. And I try and convince her as I'm working on this next flyer or this ad or this, I'm thinking of a way to highlight our staff. And by doing this, or I'm thinking of a way to find, that next thing, like our next campaign is going to be on service in January. I've already got that spinning in my head. I'm doing some of the work, but I know I can't do the work during my day job, because I have to be with people. I have to be out in the community. I have to make sure I'm doing the pieces that a superintendent does. So the challenge is stepping away from that and being in front of the camera, but also I'll find my way to do some of that on the weekend and
finding a balance.
Yeah. That's the key word. Definitely talk about balance here for sure.
Yeah. Your wife's a superintendent as well, Lily, and you're a superintendent at Burton. How have you guys been able to balance that?
Well, I will say there's ups and downs. I talk about the hills and the valleys, right? The balance is tough because we also have 4 kids.
Right.
Yeah. I have a lot of times when a superintendent starts their superintendency, their kids are already out of the house or out of high school into college maybe. We happen to both be superintendents and have kids at home. I've got a 9-year-old, they're 14, 15, and a 18-year-old. So we're lucky to have grandparents, my parents, that are really, really supportive, and so they can be that Uber driver for us. We have to find those moments to schedule time. So I have to be intentional. I guess that's what it is. And when we talk about balance, we have to have balance and then be intentional. Have to find the moments that we have. I still get it's a little tough sometimes because I've got my littlest 9-year-old that's always asking to toss the football, and I get home and I'm like, oof, I'm kind of dead. I don't know. I've been talking with people because I'm an introvert by nature. So that's another challenge, by the way. It takes a lot of energy for me to be in front of people or to be in a crowd of people. I know how to do it. I've learned how to do it over the years. Back when I was in high school, I wouldn't say a word. I would be always in the background. You would never catch me in front of anybody. I've learned how to do that, but it uses a lot of energy. So then I've got to have some energy when we get home. My wife and I are able to kind of talk shop a little bit. Hey, bounce this idea off of her. She bounces some ideas off of me. So we do find moments to kind of connect about, there's the challenges of working with 5 board members. There's the challenges of working with an amazing amount of employees that we have. That does help. I've always had my wife working alongside, working through leadership throughout. She was at Burton with me for so long. As far as all along, she was about a VP and a principal about the same time I was. As I was a director, she was continuing to be a principal throughout. So we've always had those moments where we're able to kind of bounce ideas off each other. She's pretty understanding. She's pretty understanding of everything we have to go through, especially as we've been getting into superintendent. It just happens to work out that we don't have board meetings on the same night. But if we do have some events on the same night, our kids you kind of just run the house, you just let them go. Sometimes they're nice and they'll get the dishes done. But there's it's a challenge to balance. I'm not going to say I know how to do that really well. Yet. It's always a growing There's moments where
growing pains.
Yes, we always just have to be thinking through.
Yeah.
Like, how do we do that? The one thing we do intentionally as a family is we schedule 3 trips intentionally every year that are pretty big trips. I mean, so during the summer we'll take 2 weeks. During winter we'll take 1 week, and Easter we'll take 1 week, and and then we break away and we say we're going on this trip as a family. So they're always looking forward to that next thing. What's the traditional trip we have? So
That's neat.
We have to make time for ourselves. The balance of yard work. I find yard work to be very therapeutic.
Yeah.
So I love doing yard work. I was working 4 hours this morning.
It's like mindless, huh?
Yeah. It helps me get to the point where I can rejuvenate. The grass doesn't talk
It's satisfying
back.
too, though.
No,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're all done with it, you look back, you're like, yeah, it's a nice
good.
long hair.
I did this.
Yeah, exactly. So our podcast usually just focus on the athlete,
Right.
But you have a position where you oversee a lot of athletes,
Right.
as well as Blaine does on a more certain level of it. How and you also had kids who play sports, right? Multiple sports, or you talked about your son. He just finished playing football. Now he's going into basketball and stuff like that. How important would you say it is for students to get involved in athletics or any extracurricular activities, so to say?
I think it's critical, actually, essential, especially we have a lot of students that don't have a lot of connections at home, possibly. They don't necessarily have those moments to go on a trip with their family. They don't have a moment to connect outside. So to get those connections in our school or through sports is one huge one. We always find out when it comes to driving factor, especially in our Porterville area, sports is the thing, right? Where do you go when you're on the weekend? You go out to the park out there. I'm trying to remember. It's the
Sports
complex.
Yeah.
And it's hopping. There's so many people out there.
Right.
What is those connections that kids have, and developing that sportsmanship, so
characteristics,
so huge to develop character. I think of other pieces that we're really focusing on as well as the visual and performing arts. So I kind of see that as like similar to sports. It makes a connection. It's something that connects them to something beyond just academics.
Right.
Academics is essential. It's something we all need to have, but not every kid's going to wake up in the morning and go, I can't wait to go to my math class. I can't wait to go to ELA. I can't wait to go to history or science. Some might find those connections, especially a teacher that's really inspired that in them. But those connections, I think of where Blaine's at right now in Burton Middle School. That's what they're all about. It's inspiring because they're trying to find connections for every single student. Like, what's that connection that's going to make it? And a lot of times it is sports.
Right.
Sports provide that connection. Very proud of when the connection comes with a coach that builds not only the capacity for that student to succeed as an athlete, but builds character. That's huge because if we're being real, most of our students are not going to go on and become even college, let alone professional. But what they are going to take with them is a character that's built. So I have a lot of respect for coaches who build character
and culture.
Yeah, who find a way to not isolate kids, not talk down to them, but find ways to inspire them. I don't know. I just think of certain coaches that come to mind as I think through it, the ones that even with my son DJ, who's a pretty big athlete, he's got the football and basketball going really well. Now he's got his coach inspiring him to do track this year coming up, and it's what is that connection that they make with them. I don't know. I just like to study sometimes those coaches that come in and not just try to win games. It's about building character with kids and how they handle losing as much as how they handle winning. I know it sounds weird, but I love watching sometimes when a team loses and how they handle that. And I have so much pride in how my own kid handles another group, even when they win or when they lose, how they handle the after the game adversity, the character that goes with that. I'll take that any day over the week of how you handle those situations rather than just, cheering the win. Because what do you remember once again, when it's all done? You don't remember the wins or losses. You remember that teamwork you built, the character you built that goes on into your job.
Right, the brotherhood, the sisterhood.
Huge success.
Yeah. John Wooden, you saying that, John Wooden, just studying, reading his books, watching his stuff, he would always tell his players, whether you win or lose, if I'm looking at the film or I'm looking at the court, I shouldn't be able to tell a difference. By looking at your body language, I should not be able to tell if you've won or lost. Why, in today's world, it's okay. I think it's, sometimes we want to be excited if we win, right? But I think he was more focused on like body language, right? You shouldn't be down if you've lost, but you shouldn't be, boasting and stuff and bragging and if you've won, right? So he was just saying, be even kill. Don't get too high, don't get too low.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, John Wooden's a huge. I've been reading some of his work as well. I mean, that he goes through. I can't express enough how much he was talking about character, and how much he's building a team. He will. I think even sent a few kids out of the system that were amazing athletes, but being an amazing athlete, but without character, is not going to get you where you want to go. As a team, over time, that character is what's going to keep your team moving forward. I mean, yes, you want to have that athleticism, but wow, when you're talking through what he was looking for the character that goes with that.
Right.
And it's huge. I don't even know how to express it sometimes in word. It's just that feeling you get, and it's a proud moment when I see my own kid, after he knocks somebody down, put his hand out to opposing team and pull him up. That's bigger for me than him knocking that kid down,
right.
or pounding someone, that kind of thing. There's so many different ways of looking at it, but I see him pat another kid on the helmet whenever he's done with, doing a play that he maybe just completely smacked him or something, made him fumble or something, that kind of thing. Rather, I actually have more pride in the moment when he does those things than I do in the actual play. It's kind of crazy.
Because that'll carry over.
Yes, because he's developing something then that when he's working with a colleague, he'll have that understanding.
Exactly.
It's huge because we know realistically, right? Yeah. We're not all going to become.
Well, even if we do go pro, there's going to be a last whistle. Yeah. There's going to be a last time when that buzzer goes off, and that's it.
You've also seen how many pro athletes can come up into the system and not have that character built, and how fast the system can eat you up.
Yeah.
And that it's sad to see that, because there's so much athleticism or a natural athleticism sometimes that's lost due to a level of character that hasn't been built. Maybe it's lack of coaching over the years, or maybe it's just didn't have that opportunity to build that character.
Yeah, so you have Gabby. She graduated. She played volleyball. A good volleyball player throughout high school, and academics great as well. And then DJ's coming through. He's sophomore now at Monache and playing basketball, football, and track. Both of your kids have great character, great sportsmanship. So we always try to ask parents of athletes, what advice, I guess, you would give to other parents of athletes, or just what have you been able to instill into your kids that you've seen that have been successful in allowing them to learn those characteristics, learn the sportsmanship and those type of aspects that are going to allow them to be successful, not just on the court or field, but into their life outside of their sport?
It's a good question. There's a lot. I don't know how intentional it is, but it's I learned a lot from my own dad, who came regardless of whether I played or not in basketball. I gradually, like I said, I was really skinny. I was like a beanpole all the way through. If I would have had somebody, if I'd had a gym, if I had just done it, I wish I would have, but I didn't. And so, but my dad was there no matter whether I was playing or not. He was there for me along the way. He came to every single game. He was a teacher, but so he had to break out early sometimes. We had a game in Bakersfield. There was not, I can't think of one moment where he wasn't there. And he had made a point to do that because his dad wasn't there for him when he played football. His dad never came to a game. So he said he was going to come to every single one of his kids' games. That instilled in me kind of this, wow, I didn't even play, Dad. Why'd you come?
Yeah.
And I'm coming to every one of your games. I'll be there. Delano, Bakersfield, wherever it's at, I'm going to drive there and be there for you. So that, I guess it's being there and not having the pressure of, hey, if you're going to, you do this, if you want to do it for yourself, you're going to, I'm not going to pressure you to be something that you're not wanting to do. So we've kind of worked through that over time. I'm always going to be there for DJ's games. It was really hard because I missed my first game. Actually, it was last Thursday. Missed the first one because we had a school event happening. That was the first time I've missed anything with him, with any of my kids. And
did he notice? Tough. Did he notice?
He was saying that it's okay. It's okay because I'm not going to maybe get to play as much as it would anyway. So he was understanding of it, but I'm sure he would have. I'm sure he did notice. Yeah. But being there, not pressuring too much, understanding that. I think it's afterwards saying, "Hey, how did it?" I don't know. Just being understanding of the fact that it's not the only thing in your world. It's not that big a deal. He had a mom, DJ's mom was my wife. She didn't have a chance to be in any sports. I think it's where he got his speed from. She was super fast. She had a chance to be in sports, I'm sure, but she didn't because of just the opportunities weren't there. She had to work with her family or work through things. She didn't have that same opportunities that I had growing up. And so she's always kind of grounded me in that way because I'll get kind of intense about basketball because I like basketball a lot. And so I'll be trying to tell him, hey, you got to do this. You got to be, and get really intense with him and kind of frustrate him a little bit sometimes. And she'll come in and say, hey, dude, it's not that big a deal. It's a sport.
Put in perspective a little bit.
Perspective and understanding that, hey, it's a sport. Now, it doesn't mean we don't play hard, work hard. What's been really cool to watch with DJ is he's driven something drives him beyond internally. He's driven. So haven't had to do as much. We haven't had to push him because he pushes himself. Actually, sometimes we have to tell him to relax. He's actually pushes himself so hard he doesn't get the sleep he needs because he's working out 7 a.m, then he's doing football practice 3-4 hours, and he still goes to the gym for a couple hours at night. And that was like every single day over this season, and he's continuing to do some of that. So it's it's supporting, but not pushing so hard that they don't like what they're doing. I mean,
forcing,
forcing, because we have another son that doesn't like sports that much. We've kind of pushed him a little bit to do swimming or something. You got to do something, right? So I believe it's always good to kind of push kids a little bit when they're younger to do something, right?
Yeah.
You got to do something, whether it's swimming, whether it's band, whether it's choir, whether, any number of options, art, visual and performing arts. There's a lot of opportunities, and finding those moments and saying, hey, let's do something. And then we figure out what might stick or what becomes something you're really passionate about. But if we push it too much, sometimes we find ourselves pushing against kids, and they kind of wear out on something, even if they've got the talent.
Yeah, something kind of clicked in my mind when you were talking about, being at DJ's games and your dad being at all your games. You get that perspective now as a leader. Obviously, when you're overseeing 500 something teachers and staff members, a lot of these staff members have kids and stuff that play sports. And so sometimes, you have that perspective and that empathy of like, hey, like, take off, take care of yourself, family first. This isn't that important. Make sure you are going to your game. So you kind of get that perspective now. And I see that now within our district. That comes down from the top because we do we do have that emphasis in our district about putting your family first, taking care of yourself, so then you can take care of your work. Because if you ain't taking care of yourself and your own world, how are you going to put 100% into your work? So that kind of clicked in my mind as you're talking about that.
Yeah, I have a lot of, as it is family first. You mentioned it, and there's not a moment that I won't, when it comes up to it, we say, hey, yeah, you got to take care of yourself. your own health first,
Sure.
your family first, finding ways to say yes before we say no. I mean, then I think if we give some of that and we build those relationships, they're going to put in the work. People around you, if you will put in the work. There's very little situations where they won't. And so us believing in the fact that them seeing that, we're going to say, yeah, take off, do that. And I've been pretty lucky right now that I have a board of, our board has that same kind of mindset, which is saying, yeah, your kid's first. We know that's going to happen. And we know you're going to show up. I'm going to go to those school events. Things we have to be at the personal level, thinking through how to connect personally with people. If we just see it as a business, we're not putting out just products. We're putting out like kids. Kids. There's such a complexity to that.
Yeah.
We're not just creating
our future, right?
We're not a factory. Not everything's going to be the same. We have multiple people, multiple situations happening, and we have to realize people have personal lives that are that have things happening all the time. Sometimes I don't even realize it, and I go, and there's some teachers that are dealing with some amazing personal situations that are just either health issues,
pressure,
or, that are just, we have to be understanding of that,
Sure.
that they have that. And if we aren't, we lose track of our people. And when we lose track of our people, they're not going to do the work anyway.
Yeah.
Because they won't be able to, or they'll see us as being just harsh and cold towards people. So
that's when you lose your culture.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were going to school, right, Fresno High School, and were you a good student? Did school come easy to you, or was it something of a challenge to where I was like, oh man, I got to study, I got to put in long hours, I need to get this, or did it come pretty quick to you?
It came pretty quick. Everything was. And
sorry, I have a fly in your face.
I got this fly. I didn't mean to
fight through adversity a little bit.
It's getting a little. It came pretty easy. That was, and actually, life in general has come. I say it in a. I don't like to talk about it in that way, but it's just things have come pretty easy for me, and I think that sometimes is not always a good thing. I think we have to deal with adversity sometimes in order to be prepared for when it comes to us. I was I didn't have a lot of adversity growing up. Not a lot of things happened that were that serious along the way. I was able to, I think the first time I hit a point academically where I was struggling was when I went for that pharmacy degree, and I hit chemistry in college, and that was like my first C. I think it was like a B- or a C. And I said, I worked as hard as I possibly could, and I only got a C.
And you didn't get the result you wanted.
I didn't get the result I wanted, because every other time, if I even thought I was getting A-, I could just work a little harder and get the A.
You never stressed on it.
Not once in high school, and got through valedictorian, those kind of things. Calculus hit me a little hard, but not even close until I hit that in college, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I think having adversity, I actually want to encourage. The more we protect our kids from adversity, I think the more disservice we can do them sometimes, because they don't know how to deal with it when it hits them square in the face at some time in the future. I think that's why sometimes I can want to avoid conflict, because I haven't had a lot of opportunity to deal with conflict.
Yeah. So, with that, adversity creates pressure. You get some students that aren't as good with school and the books and getting their homework done and having good grades and all that type of stuff. What advice would you give those kids, though? What would you tell them, the ones that do struggle, that have a hard time passing the curriculum and dealing with that pressure, just everything, coming down on them?
I think I think through back to sports with coaching, right? Coach. I have the same issues when we talk through with a leader that's struggling, or a teacher that's struggling, or anyone that's struggling. Is originally I saw coaching as only as sports oriented, but to have a coach or somebody that's helping, it'd be like a tutor or somebody that's can help you with your organization. Finding somebody that can work through that. So I think an adult that you can rely on as a student, but even a coach. We all can use a coach. And I think I've learned that over the years is I used to think, why would I need a coach? I think when I originally went into, this fly. When I originally,
your buddy over
yeah,
there.
I hope I took a good enough shower here.
I got one now too.
When we talk about a coach and what a coach can do for adults as well, I think everyone can use a coach, or everyone can use somebody who's helping them meet that next level. I think the one that's quote that stuck with me over the years is Dave Ramsey, when I was listening on Entree Leadership. He was talking about the only difference between you now and you from a year from now is the people you meet and the books you read. That's literally the difference between the two.
Smack it. Give it a good wave.
It really is that you can see yourself getting connected to the coach and finding I get distracted by that fly. That fly got me good.
See how easily we're distracted?
Yes. I got landed right on my nose. How do we get to see that as an opportunity, right? To have somebody that cares about them, right?
Because you can't do it alone. That's the thing, you know, it comes hard to find somebody to do it with. Right. You know, finding that person to walk side by side with you to take you where you want to go, you know? And I agree to that. You know, that's the thing. It's like, because pressure, I mean, as they get older, pressure hits and it comes down hard on them. You know, the middle school, you start now dealing with some real life stuff, you know, all these type of things. And then high school hits, and then it's like, oh man, this is all new to them. You know, it's like you mentioned before, adversity, it's great. It's amazing, you know, but to a certain extent, because if people don't usually handle it in the way that we would like them to sometimes, and they shut down. Right. And that's not the best way to do it. You know, but it's kind of hard when because I deal with a lot of student athletes, you know, and there's high pressure. Now you add the extracurriculum on top of the school, you know, having good grades, excelling at your sport, making your parents happy, making your coach happy, looking good in front of your friends. And it's just like, boom, you know? And so to your point, you're right. A good mentor, coach, friend, parent, it makes all the difference in the world for when that pressure just starts collapsing down on them.
And that's the hard part, because there's students that, and when we talk about students, there's students that don't have that necessarily at home. They may not have that parent support at home sometimes. So we have to find ways to connect them at school and find that one teacher that's going to inspire them. If you hear those moments, that's when I get the most inspired, when I hear kids later on when they're, you know, in their 20s talking about what helped you get there. And it's always about somebody they connected with along the way. Yeah. They always point back to a person that said, all right, you got to get out from underneath whatever's, you know, that adversity that's with you right now. And that was somebody helping them get there and believing in them. Anyone, I mean, that's that moment you live for, is if you can help somebody along the way believe in themselves. That's my ultimate goal as a superintendent, or even as a leader, as I've worked my way through, is always want to ask in my rounding conversations, what can I do for you? How can I get you to that next level? Where are you aiming for? And if I can set them up for that next level, that's the true goal right there.
That's success.
Help other people find success, because if we set that person up for the next level and help them hit their goals or help them hit their passion, they're going to give 10 times more effort and we're going to find that much more student success in the process.
When we grow, we go.
Yeah. I mean, because you can watch a really good coach bring that same 10 players to another level because of how they're able to connect and inspire kids.
Yeah. It takes one person to believe in you.
For sure.
True.
Yeah. So kind of, we talk about kids, like advice for, you know, students and things like that. What about like future educators, right? We constantly have educators retiring. We always want to attract the best and the brightest, right? Because my thing is, every job, no matter what anyone's doing, everyone's going through teachers. Everyone's going through education, right? That is the fundamental base of society, our educational system. Everyone goes through it, and it has a huge effect on our society and our future. That's everything, right? So we want to attract the best and the brightest, and teaching's tough, right? You've been a teacher. You oversee some. I teach. Zach teaches in a different aspect, but he's a teacher. We got Fernando Gonzalez in here. He's an educator. So we want the best and the brightest. What advice would you give to those future educators that are wanting to get an education? Maybe they're not sure. Why should they get into education? Why do we need them for our future in our society?
Man, that's a deep question.
It is.
A very deep question. I don't even know if I can give it justice, but
sure.
I mean,
Start digging.
yeah, I mean, because there's I'm sure there's such a great quote somewhere, an answer, that people give. I think of it as being making a difference. Some of it can get a little cliche sometimes, but really when it comes down to it, you're shaping the next generation.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got that in your heart to come through and say, we're not just building a new product and trying to make the next $1 million. We're building the next generation that's building a legacy.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, if any connection you've made with those students carries on and they connect with somebody else along the way, all those connections lead to us growing together. I'm a huge believer in continuous improvement. That's something I've gained over the last 7 years, probably, of our journey at Burton School District in continuous improvement, and saying, what is that next level? How do we build? How do we connect with our kids? And so I think I guess when I look back at it, it's leaving that legacy of, if you can see it past the day to day. When you say, I know teachers saying, I have to go to school and teach kids. And if you just see it as you're just trying to teach kids academic, or just trying to teach them how to do addition and subtraction, it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
If somebody has that inspiration, those are the things we look for when we're talking to teachers or potential teachers, is somebody that comes in not just saying, oh, I know how to do math, I know how to do language arts, or I know how to do this. A lot of us know how to do those things, but do we know how to connect with kids in order to get them inspired to learn it and see why they need to know it, not just know it? Because if you know it, we have a lot of book smart kids, but they haven't necessarily learned how to connect in our world that we live in as they come out. And that's when they hit that adversity, right? When they hit, the real world hits them and they haven't developed critical thinking or creativity, some of those pieces, or even sometimes grit. Yeah. So any teacher that can identify the fact that they're trying to build kids, the whole child, not just, that's not my responsibility. All I'm doing is teaching them arithmetic.
2 + 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Kind of missed the point. Yeah.
I guess that's, I mean, it's not the most polished statement back to
that's
you.
great.
No, I think it's great.
Yeah.
But it's like something that's in your heart, really.
Right.
You have a heart for kids. You see it in our teachers. Where you walk in and you can tell when they have that heart for kids. They want to see them succeed. They know not every kid comes in with the same support at home.
Every kid has a different story.
Yeah, they all do. We're not a factory, and not everyone comes in starting off, and we're not trying to output the same kids. Every one of them is unique.
Yeah.
So that's huge to see. Helps us to identify why we want to spend some of our dollars and our after-school dollars to give as many opportunities as we can to kids, because that might be that one moment that kid made a connection that kept them in school. That's huge when you can find and not realize, wow. I think the latest one I think of is we created I'm going to say we, even though I didn't have a lot to do with it other than saying we had a dream to create an after-school elementary sports kind of program for kids that was kind of like a no-cut type situation. So the students wouldn't get necessarily cut from the team in the early elementary, to see if we can develop a passion for kids that might not have parents who have them involved with them after school sports, because we know that it takes some resources to have and some time and effort from parents to have kids involved with sports programs that are outside of school. So to be bringing that in, we might make that one connection or two connections that kids find, and that keeps them coming to school. Once we get them to school, then we start thinking about, now we can educate them.
Yeah.
But if they're before that, they might not found that connection, and they're kind of not even wanting to come to school. And then we find them to be truant, and then gradually they could go down another route, right? Which is not showing up.
Right.
So the more we can find those connections, the more we can put dollars towards kids and those connections, I think is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, man, the last time I was with you was in 5th grade.
Yep.
Yeah, conversations were a little bit different then, between the both of us, but now, sitting here and talking to you and listening to your story and everything, I could easily see why you're in the position that you're in. You're the leadership, that skills that you have, the vision that you have, everything that you have coming that you've received, and that what you want to get, man, it all makes perfect sense why you're the man for the job. And I'm really glad that our kids in our community and our youth have somebody like you in that position. It's really awesome, and I'm really happy. I'm really happy to have this conversation with you, because I get the inside scoop and get a feel for who you are personally. And, it gets me a little emotional, because sometimes, we get kids that do get left behind.
Yep.
And it always starts at the top. It starts at the top and then it trickles down. And, you're a man who I'm listening to, that, no kid gets left behind if you have something to do about it.
We got to give it our best effort. I mean, there's times when we have to keep working to find that. That's why I talk about continuous improvement so much, is that it's always putting yet on the statement, right? If we can just put yet on the statement, that gives everyone a chance. Just give people a chance. It doesn't mean we're not going to have a lot of adversity, along the way, and there might be some moments where there's just tough decisions that have to be made. But let's give ourselves a chance. Be thinking about that, finding people that have that same passion and heart to be on the team that work towards that is huge. It gets us that much more opportunity to find that one student that maybe would slip through.
Right.
That's something developed over the years, because I've seen some great educators who have demonstrated that. That's one of the biggest privileges over the years, is being able to be in classrooms and see, be in meetings and be in all kinds of different aspects of education, and see people who care beyond the day-to-day, beyond just, this is my job. This is it's so much more than a job. It's a calling. It's a profession at the least. It's a calling at the, in another level for some, it's a calling. It's something that's saying, I'm not really thinking about the time right now. What I'm thinking about is that connection I made to a kid right now who's going to find success someday. Yeah. So it's it gets me emotional thinking about it as well. It's something that
you're passionate
don't take
about
lightly.
It. You're passionate.
Passionate.
Yeah.
For sure.
And at the end of the day, we can't lose sight of why we do this, right? The kids.
Yeah.
When things get tough as an educator, whatever, we go through things, it's like, okay, you sometimes got to remove yourself from, that tunnel vision, whatever you're in. And sometimes like take that step back and say, why are we doing this? Why do we get into this from the beginning? And it's the kids. And I kind of what Zach just said, your leadership, there's so many great people that work in Burton School District, and I can't sit here and name them all, but I mean, whether it's you, Gonzo, Casey, Irene, like there's been so many times like we're, it's on the weekends or a holiday, whatever, or we're late hours and we're not even thinking of, like, I've never thought about going to work from 7 and leaving at 3:30, whatever it is. It doesn't cross your mind, right? A paycheck doesn't cross my mind. And that's because of the people that we're surrounded with, right? We're going in, it's like, it's a project, right? How can we make this better? How can we continually improve? Because we've never arrived.
Right.
And so how do we keep building this program, building these programs, building this school district? And that comes from your leadership and all the great people within our school district, because that's the mindset it takes. That's the mindset. And that's why other school districts are coming to see and look at what we're doing. And I mean, that's also why we're going into other districts as well. So it's that continuous improvement, like you said,
Yep.
never arriving and always trying to get better, and see where we could improve on.
Remaining a student of the game.
Yeah, constantly trying to find ways to make things better. Yeah, better. What's that next step? What's that next change idea that we're going to try? It can be as small as when we're looking through the marketing for our own district. I think that can't take that lightly. Is how do we improve our service? How do we improve? I mean, the one I've been working on to try and be less of a big superintendent up in the office that nobody knows where he's at kind of thing. Visibility.
Yeah.
But finding that balance between visibility and getting work done.
Getting the job done.
So that's a constant, all right, where have I been today? I have to intentionally schedule those pieces in order to continue to be, I want to be more human to everybody, not the big boss. I don't need to be that. I don't have to have that position, but man, the opportunity it provides to bring that many more chances for students to succeed, it's worth it. It makes it all worth it.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
With all that being said, we kind of briefly we've talked about a lot of stuff before the podcast started. There's so much stuff in this new world, this digital technology world, and it's getting to artificial intelligence and different things that we're already implementing in our district and in some ways in the classroom and things like that. So it's about staying not just on par, but staying ahead of the game, right? Yep. Whereas when our kids graduate, they've seen this, right? They're entering the workforce or entering the university system, college system, whatever the different trades they're going into, and they're there. They're world ready, we call it, right? What is, I guess, the future of education look like, and what do we need to do as a school district, but also just as in society to be able to set our students up for success? We're doing a lot of amazing things, extracurriculars right now, the implementing and staying up with the latest and greatest technology. We have, one-to-one MacBooks and Apple technology with all of our students. So I guess the question goes back to, what is the future of education? What do we need to do or continue doing to set our students up for success?
I think the one I think about a lot is, once again, that continuous improvement, remaining hungry, trying to figure out what is that next step and being open to it, because we can get stuck in our ways, and all of a sudden we were cutting edge, and then, pre-COVID we were cutting edge, and then post-COVID we're now, we don't want to let it slip, and sometimes it can happen, right? In any kind of situation can kind of uproot that. So remaining innovative, being open to seeing where other districts or other trainings can take us. I don't want to get into that spot where we're always adapting the next the next best program, the next best this or that, because those are fads. Those are kind of passing fads. But what are the big picture pieces? And I think you mentioned one of them being AI. We have to, sometimes you look at it as, well, we want to just hide it, right? Even with students and technology, right? In the classroom, you can see it as an interruption, or you can see it as an innovative tool. Mm-hmm. And it's so much easier just to get rid of it. Let's just not do it. Let's try and regulate and make technology go away. Let's make AI not be an option. People will find ways around that. Mm-hmm. People will find ways to make it happen. So why not embrace some of these pieces and find out how we can manage it to help kids be successful and be prepared for the world they're going to jump into, because they're going to be part of it. Technology can be one of the best things in the world, but it also can be one of the things that can be a really tough thing for students as they're working through it. So the more we can teach responsibility around it, the more, and it's not just technology, but anything. And we're competing with some technology that is definitely tough to compete with when we're trying to talk of a traditional classroom.
Sure.
So the more we can get students talking in the classroom, the more we can get students interacting and learning some of those skill sets that employers are looking for. Always trying to find those options, because employers are not looking for grades. When you're talking about the 4.0, there's a lot of 4.0s.
Yeah.
But there's a lot less kids that have the critical thinking that have been developed, the grit to stay with it, the creativity, the creative mind to solve a complex problem that can come up at a job.
Yeah.
That's what employers are looking for. So the more we can incorporate that into our lessons and be open to it and not get stuck in that traditional mindset, that's kind of what I look at for education, is how can we continue to be open, not closed, but not so much that we're looking to find a new program, I guess. Or if we're going to find a new program, we evaluate what we're already doing and try not to stack, because you can get into that where the next shiny object stacks on top of the other shiny object, and all of a sudden we have too many things we can't be excellent at.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's really good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's thank you. Like I said, I appreciate you taking the time to jump on the podcast with us. It's a conversation I had with Zach a while back, and with Gonzo, like, hey, let's we've had athletes, was kind of we had athletes, coaches, health and fitness experts, but it's quest for success. And when we look in our community, we look at different people, your name just keeps coming up, right? And so you've been through every different level of education. You're now the superintendent of Burton School District, and you're continuing to inspire. You're continuing to just be a good role model, not just for kids, but for teachers like myself, for other community leaders in our community as well. So we appreciate that, and it's a privilege to have you on and to work with you as well.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, like my takeaway is how involved you get everybody, in ways, where most leaders have a hard time doing, and the biggest takeaway is you give recognition when recognition is due. And sometimes that's hard for leaders to do. And that's the thing I truly admire. It's like being able to say, I didn't do this alone. I had a lot of help. And like you mentioned a few times, like you have a strong core of people close around you to make sure that everything is moving accordingly and correctly in the direction that you see the best vision for Burton School District. So if there's like one thing I'm taking away is how involved you get everybody. You get everybody rowing in the same direction, and you make sure that they get their recognition for helping you move that boat.
Yeah, I think that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Is to get everybody rowing in that same direction, trying to get all those arrows pointing in the same way. It's not always easy, and you also have to have intentional moves that happen along the way. The one I think of that I think a huge advice that has come over the years, I mean, when you're talking through it, reminded me of Brene Brown talked about vulnerability. And I've had to work through that, because I used to think vulnerability meant weakness.
Yeah.
And then you have to be this tough persona. You have to be this person that's in charge and always knows all the answers. And she talked about that vulnerability, how important it is to build a team, to build leaders around you that work through it, and being vulnerable enough to say, you know what, I don't have the answer to that. And that takes a lot. And it was hard for me. It is still going to always be challenging, because then you have to be, when you're vulnerable, it's not being weak, it's being approachable, being, owning when you make a mistake, apologizing. That's hard to do as a leader, but just flat out saying, you know what, hey, I messed up.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was going to be approached this way, because then gradually you can think through big decisions. So like right now, we've got a couple big decisions happening in our district, and I'm trying to think of all the angles, right? Empathy, trying to jump into everyone else's shoes and saying, okay, how are they going to see that? What's the best way to cascade that messaging? Honestly, I know from the beginning, I'm going to mess up somewhere. So I have to be ready to be vulnerable and say, you know what? I didn't see that angle, because I don't know. But if I can be trusting of my team around me, they're going to help me see more angles. Yeah. And there will be less chance of that happening. But I have to be prepared to be vulnerable.
Yeah. Being transparent.
Transparent, vulnerability. Yeah. Keeping, I think the other word that keeps coming to mind that you mentioned earlier was balance, trying to make sure, because if you don't have the right balance, you can actually kind of lose it sometimes. And you wear yourself down and you lose track of who you are if you're not careful and don't keep a balance in your life, because then you might lose it and regret it, right? Lose something in a situation that you later on say. But if it happens, we're all human. Similar to with our own staff, we have to be vulnerable and saying, hey, you know what? Saying that to a team's hard though.
Yeah.
Well, a few times when you say, hey, I messed up here.
Yeah. Like before you got here, me and Blaine were talking like, man, we don't judge people by their mistakes or we judge them by how they respond to their mistakes, right. And that's very important for people to understand, because we are human and we are going to make more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 10,000 mistakes in our lifetime,
right.
Especially when we're trying to progress and we're trying to learn and we're trying to adapt and we're trying to figure things out. I mean, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So,
well, if you're not making mistakes, you're not trying very hard. That's the other piece. And that's why by being vulnerable, by being understanding, I want people to feel like they can make a mistake, because if they're not making mistakes, then we're not moving to that next level. We're not innovating. People are just going to comply. And when we have all compliance people in any business, in education as well, if we just have compliance people we're surrounded by, we're going to get the job done. But other companies, other education institutions, they're going to pass us up. Yeah. All of a sudden, 10 years from now, we'll realize we're stuck in 2023. And I've seen it happen to educational institutions as well. It's like stuck in early 2000s, still. And because we were afraid to be vulnerable and to take that next step, and people were fearful of taking that next step. Yeah. They're just wanting to comply. Come to work, do your job, be quiet, comply. That's when you're working in an organization that has fear built into it, or authority built into it, right? Positional authority.
Yeah, and it never lasts. It never ends well.
No, it doesn't. It might last for a little bit, but then you end up finding over time that that other people pass you up. In business, you go out of business, right? We've seen it happen with companies before. You see. You say, why does one company just completely blow it out of the park, while another company who was doing so great end up just literally going out of business? In education, you don't go out of business because you keep having kids come. But what you do is you have an educational institution that's not innovative, and gradually it's not producing as much student success as it could. You get kind of compliance.
Yeah. No, I think one of my favorite traits about you is that how you've managed to overcome your being an introvert, because it's hard, being an introvert and having to speak to all these people, all these times, all these events, and all these type of things. But you rose to the challenge, and you got comfortable getting uncomfortable. And to me, that's a leader. That's how you succeed. You have to get uncomfortable to get comfortable, and so I just, like I keep mentioning it, is like the leadership skills. I mean, guys, just they're throughout this whole podcast, all these nuggets, all this relates to sports. All of it relates to sports. You know what I mean? So guys, just
business leadership.
Business leadership, systems, they all tie in together. So
I love reading the business leadership books as well as educational leadership books. By seeing, I think everything ties in.
Yeah.
Good practices are good practices when it comes down to leadership.
Yep.
It's about building relationships and connecting and finding ways to go beyond just getting the job done.
Right.
It's huge.
Me and Blaine said a couple of times on other podcasts too about the vulnerability. You know what I mean? It's like when I lost my train of thought on that. Being vulnerable is tough, but God, I lost my train of thought on that one. We always say it about almost every single podcast. I forgot what it was.
I'm trying to think to pick you up, but
no. We always say it. No, it was a great one. I'll think of it. Go ahead.
That would have been one of those spotlight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. In little closing.
Bummer.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll think about it about 2 hours later.
I was thinking about it for the last 5 minutes too, ready to bring it out,
Of course.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. When people get, admitting that you don't know something, but we respect the people that say that, but they say, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Those people right there are the best
figure
people
it
to be
out type
around.
people.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to be around those people, and you need to be one of those people, especially through adversity or learning new things. Like, I don't know it. I'm sorry. I don't have an answer for you, but I'm going to figure it out. Growth.
Yeah. Go back do your homework.
Exactly.
Go call people, talk to people you trust, and you come back and all right, like I think we got something here.
Yeah. By admitting it, then you can actually go back and get it done, because otherwise you kind of want to bury it or hide it.
Yeah.
If you want to hide it, then you're not going to go back and figure it out.
And that's being humble, because then if you're willing to say, I don't know, well, then you're more willing to say, go seek help too, and go ask, because a lot of times those people that can't say, that think they know it all, or not willing to say, I don't know, they're also probably not willing to go like ask for help and go talk to people and say, hey, what do you think about this?
And
so
it's always a challenge for men too to ask for help.
It is, and that's that fine line between vulnerability and weakness. And I used to think it was all one. As I would, I was always, because I hadn't dealt with a lot of that sort of thing. Haven't had a lot of adversity in my life. It hasn't been there. But it doesn't mean I can't learn that from other people's stories,
right?
From other people's, like say, books, or by talking to other people,
their experiences. Yeah.
I still have to when I get ready to walk into a room right now, I have to take a breath before I just have to focus. I mean, even coming here today, I was more nervous than when I was going to talk in front of the 600 staff members, because I was like, oh, what's going to happen? It's the unsureness, right, of what's going to happen, and am I going to say the right words? And there's video cameras on me, that kind of thing. I have to take a breath, think about it. I have to, but I can't memorize it. I can't write it down, because if I do any of that, it doesn't sound sincere, or it doesn't come across sincere. Yeah. But then sometimes you get hung up a little more. But there's the sincerity of anything we do is important to me too. So I try and do thank you cards to our staff members, but it has to be something specific. Sure. It has to be something I see, because otherwise it just becomes just another, he's just going through the motion, thank you card. If you get it specific, man, the connections you make with people
are real.
Huge. Very real. And I think talking or getting and mingling in a crowd, the politics of this position are still a big challenge for me, and it's going to be tough. I'll still get in a room and kind of stand off in the corner and kind of freak out. Yeah. It's just how it is. When we go to a social, if you put a social in the front of anything, it freaks me out. Yeah. Because, come to this social, or come to this, there's different ones that we have with the community. I had to challenge myself, so I put myself as a chamber ambassador for the Chamber of Commerce, and that is literally one of the things that you're supposed to do, right? Everything you do is about like recruiting or talking to people that you don't know if they want to talk to you, and you just go up and gradually I try and make it like, okay, I'm going to talk to one person today. I'm going to talk to two, and I'm gradually getting to know people, and that helps. Mm-hmm. But man, it does not give me energy. Like an extrovert gets energy off of that. It gives the opposite. I'll go home and just be gone. It's not easy. That's a struggle. What gives me energy is sitting and knocking out, another, like a video, or knocking out something that highlights staff member. I get that, like this pride factor that goes, that's just like off the chart. It gets you pumped up.
Gives you chills, huh?
Yeah. I've got a few different things going right now in the background. I'm like, I'm going to see how I can highlight this person, or put this in there, or do that, or build up this program within our district, or those kind of things. That's all that work. But then but I have to remember, I've got a multifaceted position now, which is not just that. Before I was able to kind of live off of that and live off of other people's successes. Now it's me having to go out and try and build our district through the lens of our community. Yeah. And trying to figure out what the best way to do that. One of them is to be there and be visible. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, David. We're lucky. We're grateful to have you leading our school district and being a leader, key figure in our community. It's hard to put in the words I guess how lucky we are to have somebody, a great role model to look up to, and for our kids to look up to, business leaders to look up to, because it's good for our community. It's good for our educators, our students, our families, and know that we have someone we could trust that is going to lead us in the right direction. So thank you again. Thank you for taking the time to come on today. A lot of people are going to get a lot of not just leadership out of this, but I guess just whether it's families that listen to this, other educators in our district, we have a ton of student athletes that listen to this, people that from other states, other countries that tune in. So, they're going to take a lot away from this, and we're grateful for that.
Yeah. And to give you a little bit of closure, you nailed it. You did a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did good, man. It was awesome to have you here. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot.
Know.
Yeah.
You can always edit though, right? A little bit. Something went wrong.
Yeah. It was good.
You can edit out the fly. I think he buzzed a little bit on this.
Hey, it's the characteristics.
It's the character of the whole.
You battled through the fly. I battled through a little bit of sunlight at the beginning.
You showed us why you're a true leader.
Yeah. Adversity, right?
Perseverance. That's another word.
There we go.
Persevere.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
Well,
but yeah,
cool.
Thank you. It was fun talking shop, man.
That's great.
Thank you for making the time.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm hoping we can continue to well, the next step is me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to start a podcast.
Right.
This gives me some inspiration, makes me want to kick it into another gear, because that's a hard one to get going for our district. But we're trying to start a little bit of a podcast that highlights the Burton experiences with our kids and with our students and our teachers and our staff members, and finding those nuggets of amazingness that's happening out in our Burton experience. So
it'll be great.
It's going to
Anything you touch, I know it'll be top notch.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
We'll make it happen. All right.
Cool.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, David.
Thank you, guys.